Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
It's a blessing to be in this position, and we're just thankful to be here. We're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and play in front of the 12 man.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Buchanan. Oh, there he is. I didn't see him not standing there. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How are you? Party a little bit?
Well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
A little late night party?
Either.
Can't hear anything. Talk to me, OB. What's going on in Destin?
You know, the fact of the matter is, I think this whole thing has been just a gripe session. Nothing's getting solved. Nothing's getting passed. They're complaining about not knowing what's going to happen with the settlement. They're arguing over, they call it debating, arguing over whether they should play 8 games or 9 games in conference play in 26. And, you know, some teams are saying, yeah, like Brian Kelly yesterday was saying, hey, we want to play 9 games and we want to play a Big Ten opponent. Okay, I can respect that. Quite frankly, Chris Del Conte said that they want to play 9 games and a, Power 5 opponent. But then there's others that say, well, but then it's going to make it harder for us to get into a bowl eligibility, and we don't know about that, right? And we keep talking about how powerful the SEC is, and he's like, oh, yeah, but we need an easier path, I think, for some teams. I think that's kind of hypocritical. And then you get the, then they talk about the playoff. Are we going to get 4 teams in? And yeah, well, we don't want to play 8 games until we get, or 9 games until we get assurances that there's going to be which makes sense to me, that some kind of insurance, as we've talked about before, that they're going to get a strength of schedule component, that's taken seriously. So a team that plays a weak schedule and has 1 loss doesn't go over like an SEC team that has 2 losses. So it's really been a lot of rehashing of the same stuff they've been talking about, for months.
OB, it's a lot of posturing. There's leverage going on here. A lot of it's being played out through the media. But I heard Brian Kelly's quote yesterday, and to me, I was like, you know what? I'll go one better. I say 8 conference games and 2 Big Ten teams a year, all right, to ensure you get 1 away and 1 at home. To me, and then you get your 2 cupcakes that you want to add to your schedule. There's your 12-game season. I think that's the way to move forward. That's the David Nuño way. And I'm sure there's some flaws in it, but I think...
Well, the Big Ten plays 9 games.
Well, they can move to 8.
Okay, you can debate whether, okay.
Now, well, here's my reasoning behind it. So here's my reasoning. The Big Ten is top heavy, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Right? So, okay, now you get 2 SEC teams. Let's see how top heavy you are now. Let's actually see it play out in real time. I'm curious how Indiana, Penn State, even Michigan and all these, like, Ohio State ended up being obviously fantastic, but I'm just curious if you had to play a couple SEC schools every year, that was part of the scheduling model, how the Big Ten would do. Then they would definitely want 8 games, by the way, not 9.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's never been brought up. I don't think it'll fly. I think that the trend looks like, are you going to go to more conference games and not less? I know Chris Del Conte, for instance, who, by the way, you don't have to like the guy. I don't either, but he makes himself available.
Yeah.
Off frequently.
He likes the media.
And he makes himself available to his local media, which I think Trev Alberts could learn from that. So moving on.
Tell me how you really feel. I'm kidding.
Let's just say requests from the local media that made their made the commitment to come here, requests to get with Trev along with just the local media were denied.
By the way, Obi, I tend to think Greg Sankey actually they acted like they wanted the 4-4-2-2-2-1 model, whatever it was. Yeah. But I actually think they really always wanted the 5-11 model. I think they're playing chess again. And to me, the 5-11 model gets more SEC teams in.
Yeah, maybe, but no, I think they're what they really want is the 4 teams. I think the 5-11 model is kind of what they got now, right? Or, I mean, now it's the 4 conference champions and somebody else get in. So 5 teams, but there's only 12 teams. But I don't know. I think if they had the 5-11, they're still worried about if they're going to get left out or lose a spot. I can't ever imagine them not having at least 3, but losing a spot because it's just tougher competition on a week-to-week basis.
I was reading Ross Dellinger's article this morning where he's kind of breaking this all down from Yahoo Sports. In there, he talks about the SEC coaches are pushing for the 5-11 model while the ADs want the 4-4-2-2-1 model. And as you pointed out, SEC coaches don't want that 9th conference game, while I think ADs are more open to it. And for this to happen for 2026, because we're talking about the 2026 playoffs, they've got to figure this out here in the next couple of months. It has to be done by July, early August.
Well, yeah, that said, and then someone was saying that a TV exec said, "Oh, we can push it back to January." So it seems like nobody knows for sure when it has to be done. I even heard say, "Hey, we need to get this done by what they say, July 31st or something like that at one point." So who knows? Look,
it's college sports, right? College football. It's just a bunch of people saying ideas into the air and no action.
That's what I'm saying. That's what this has turned into this week. In the past, at least they got some things solved. Like, a couple of years ago, they said, okay, we're going to play 8 games and not 9 games. So they actually made a decision on something. And I don't know how much power they actually have to make a decision on something. But here's what they could do. They could come out and have a steadfast, this is our position on it. We want to go to a 5-11 model, or no, we want the 4 guaranteed spots and we won't move on that. Or we're going to go to 9 games or stay at 8 games and we're not going to move on that. But, as you know, TV is going to play into that ultimately too. Are they going to sweeten the deal on the TV package?
Who did I see talk about this? It might have been Greg Sankey with Feinbaum that, everybody keeps talking about if they add a 9th conference game, it's going to be more money from ESPN. And he brought up a point. Actually, that's now going to be 8 games as opposed to the possibility of 16 games on different television options. So he did bring that up. Or excuse me, yeah, 16 because you would all be playing a non-conference team.
Okay, I missed that. I guess I'm not following. If you go,
you broke out there, OB. Basically, what he's saying, it's not as simple as just adding this extra game because if 16 teams have 16 home games, that's more revenue at home for their teams for that game, and also television-wise, you'd probably get more money through a marquee matchup for sure from a television perspective. But there's other sources of revenue involved by having home games against the non. It's just, again, it's more.
Yeah, that's why Greg Sankey was asked yesterday about are SEC teams interested in playing abroad, like Notre Dame played in Ireland, and some other teams have played out of the country. And he says, I understand why the ACC will do that. Georgia Tech and Florida State played in Ireland.
That sounds right.
I think it was. He says, I understand why they would do that, but without meaning to be arrogant, he says, we have so much fan support, and it's such a great home experience, make so much money. We don't have to go, and they don't abroad, and they don't want to sacrifice a home game for somebody to go somewhere else.
This is TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Currently, I'm hanging out at the Holistic Planning Coal Zone. OB, I want to talk about something Coach Elko said yesterday. It's something that we've brought up several times on this show. He was speaking at the Capital City A&M Club, and he goes, we're really excited about the offensive line. When I stood on this podium last year, that was the question mark number one. You've established that offensive line group, and those guys are what they're all about.
Yeah, you know, I always say you cannot find a strong team, especially a strong offensive team, without a good offensive line. A&M should have I think, one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. Sounds like, you know, there's Mike saying as well, feels the same way. And why wouldn't you? We've talked about it before. A&M was second in the SEC in rushing offense, and they were fourth in sacks allowed. Yep. You know, you don't do those things without a good offensive line, and with everybody coming back and adding some guys who aren't around because of injury, it projects to be a position of strength without a doubt.
Yeah, look, and I think the beauty of it is exactly what he said right there, is the fact that it was such a question mark last year, and it ended up being a strength of the team. Coming into this season, it should continue to be a strength of the team or even stronger.
Yeah, stronger.
And if you can address some of the question marks coming into this season, how much stronger of a team are you, right? So if last year, the two big question marks last year were what? We'd say the
offensive line, receiver.
And receiver, okay. So this year, receiver is still a question, but you think you've addressed that. If offensive line isn't a question, the defensive backs are a question, and the defensive line, a question, right?
Yes.
If you address half of those, how much better of a team are you? If you know the offensive line is going to be good and you get that same kind of level of production that you got from the offensive line from your secondary.
Yeah, if your secondary turns into a strength after last year, as long as some other position doesn't take a step back, and as long as, if you say the secondary is going to be much, or makes the same improvement as like the offensive line did, okay, then the secondary is excellent. It's one of the best in the SEC. But then you have to make sure that the defensive line doesn't become a liability, and people don't just run on you all the time because they know they can. Now, we think the defensive line at the very least is going to be adequate, right? With all the guys they brought in, and Albert Regis is still around, and Cassius Howe's just getting glowing reviews for all the progress he's made. So we don't think that's going to be the issue, that they're going to be a liability, but that would be the only concern.
If you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us up at 979-693-1150. That is the Buppy's Catering hotline. We'll answer that on the Buppy's Catering hotline. Plus, you can text the show 979-693-1150. Let's go around the room, talk to the people, OB. Behind the glass is actually Luke Evangelist. All you got to say is Mbako, and he smiles.
I am smiling.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
I don't know if your energy's there. I need to bring it up.
Well, sorry, I've got Bronny. Oh, wait, Bronny left, but Bronny was just sapping all the energy out of this room. He came in and he was distracting, talking all this mess about Bucky McMillan, and I had to defend the Texas A&M head basketball coach from Ryan Broninger's wrath, and so I was busy doing that, and I apologize for not having as much energy. It's just when you deal with Bronny, that's what happens.
So you're actually telling me that behind the scenes there, Broninger was giving you a hard time while you're doing your assignment of the day, which is to direct the show, was talking in your ear during that. That's actually what happened.
Yeah, and I have witnesses back here to confirm that that's what happened. And I told him, look, Bronny.
People are saying no behind you.
Oh, okay. No, they're just hard at work. They're busy. I was like, Bronny, when we're out in the lobby, we can joke around, we can mess around, but right now I'm supposed to talk. He's taking me away from my job. So bad on you, Bronny, for that.
Luke, what's on your mind this morning?
Not much. Just got to watch some great NBA basketball, as I'm sure OB loves to watch that as well. How about Alex Caruso going back to the NBA Finals for the second time in 6 seasons? Now with the Oklahoma City Thunder, they just absolutely dominated the Timberwolves in 5 games, and Caruso was a big part of that defensively.
Well, I think they're going to win it all because I like the Pacers, but I don't think they have what it takes to compete with the Thunder. What do you think?
Well, you see, the Pacers do have my all-time favorite Aggie in Quentin Jackson, so it's kind of hard to root against them. I know Quentin Jackson doesn't play, but Tyrese Halliburton is very fun to watch. But yeah, I just don't see anybody beating Oklahoma City right now. But if the Pacers win in advance, it'll guarantee that an Aggie will win a ring for, I believe, the 4th time in 6 seasons, which is big for recruiting and selling as a program that, hey, you've got these guys who have won NBA championships and come be a part of that pedigree.
All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Reese Nygren is in the house. Somebody was sick again, so you said, you know what? I'll step up and do it.
Yeah, I'll take the extra on-air time.
You need the reps, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the reps.
Always love the reps.
What's going on?
Yesterday at the E.B. Cushing Stadium, 12 Aggies advanced in the West Regional to the quarterfinal round. Alexander Solevyov actually advanced to Eugene, Oregon for the national championship in pole vault. He tied for first place with a 5.42 meter throw. Also, A&M basketball announced the hiring of a new strength and conditioning coach, Darby Rich. Rich spent 8 seasons with the Aggies from 2011 to 2019 under Coach Kennedy. He has 22 years of sports performance coaching and 28 years at the collegiate level, led 11 teams to NCAA tournament appearances, and developed 20 NBA players, including who Luke mentioned, Alex Caruso.
Yep. Keep it going. What else?
Mac Barbara and Maya Perez earned National Fast Pitch Coaches Association All-Second Team honors yesterday, and Coco Woolley became the first Aggie to earn a Rawlings Golden Glove Award. A&M standout Wheaton Ennis of the golf team was one of 5 athletes named to the Golf Coaches Association of America All-Freshman Team that was released on Wednesday. Ennis, who recently claimed Ping All-Central Region recognition, enjoyed a stellar rookie campaign. He earned SEC All-Freshman recognition and picked up SEC Freshman of the Week on 3 different occasions.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. OB, more football to talk because that's what we're going to do, right?
Yeah, never a bad time to talk about football.
Never a bad time to talk some football. Looking forward to seeing you at 1775 here soon. So you tell me right now, if you had to make your order today, but it can't be your normal go-to, you got to switch it up because I know you get the sampler. You got to switch it up, OB.
I might go with the turkey. I'm feeling kind of heavy after eating out every day this week. I might have to go for that turkey. It's really good. I say that, but then when I get there, I'm probably going to cave and go for the pork ribs. But I at least go there with the intention of getting the turkey, and I might throw in some of that jalapeno cheese sausage and maybe even, get a little sample of the brisket. And what the hell? I'm going to get the sampler.
Yeah, you know what? We're not in communist China. Have whatever you want, OB. And I know that you're a big proponent of going to an award-winning barbecue place. You can go there. It's not that far. It's open Thursday through Saturday. We're talking 1775, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. 8203 Raymond Stausser Parkway in College Station. Call them up. 979-492-6241. 1775txbbq.com. And we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. OB's on the Bucky's Catering Hotline in is it Sandestin or is it just Destin?
Technically Sandestin. I think it's one of those things that you can be on one side of the street. You're in Sandestin. Frankly, it may even be there's a debate. It may even be Miramar Beach.
So I am 100% okay with me taking that gig from you next year.
All right.
I'm okay with it. I'm about that life.
Yesterday was a day where I think the first 5 hours was spent just sitting around waiting for guys, athletic directors and maybe coaches to come out of a meeting.
Yeah.
And now look, Mike Elko came out and he came out of that meeting like a blitzing linebacker. If I had gotten in front of him to try to get a quote, I was going to get bulldozed. Same with Bucky McMillan. He just went a completely different direction. And then, like I said, Trev wasn't available. But, hey, Brian Kelly stopped and, did a gaggle, and Shane Beamer, Sam Pittman. There's a lot. I saw it was funny. I saw a bunch of the Austin media was at the bottom of a staircase interviewing Vic Schaefer. And I saw Steve Sarkisian come out from the meeting, and he was about to leave, and he's at the top of the staircase, and he, takes a left to go down the staircase, and he sees all the media, and he stops, and he hesitates, and then he goes the complete other direction.
Smart play. I think I've done that move whenever I see people at the grocery store. Like, no, I'm not ready to have that 13-minute conversation right now. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know some texts have been coming in. Reese Nygren.
David in Franklin said, I like that model that David brought up with 8 conference games and 2 Big Ten games. But how about 8 conference and 2 Big 12 one year, then the next year 8 conference and 2 against the ACC, then back and forth, since those are the conferences that don't like the SEC and the Big Ten getting 4 guaranteed in the playoffs.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it, OB. I don't hate it.
I think there's just a kind of like an alliance with the Big Ten.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's going to be a one. It's kind of like that Big 12 basketball challenge. I think it's going to come out. They'll try to put the teams that, that they think are on an even keel together. That matchup, like, how Kentucky and Kansas always play in basketball. Maybe it'll be, Georgia and Ohio State, or, whatever, Michigan and Alabama, whatever. So who knows? But I know that's, again, that's what Brian Kelly said he'd want to do. Sarkisian, now he has selfish purposes for wanting 9 conference games because, as he points out, and everybody knows.
We've lost you, OB. Do you guys hear him? Nope. OB, you there?
No.
There, you're back. Okay. So midway through your Sark comment, you were saying?
I meant Del Conte. So he wants 9 conference games selfishly, because they're always playing Oklahoma and Dallas. So every other year, he only gets 3 home conference games. So they want 9 conference games, so they'll always have 4.
It's okay to be selfish. That's the way I look at it. Like, you got to watch out for yourself because they're not watching out for you. And I by the way, whatever's going to hurt Texas I'm okay with, and everybody A&M plays. But, like, when it comes to your profession, when it comes to your family, when it comes to your football schedule, nobody cares about what you want. They care about themselves. So from an A&M perspective, what's going to be the most manageable way to a playoff? Right, that's why I don't care about anybody else. Right,
the most manageable way is just get a good team, and just go beat who's ever in front of you, and stop looking for easy ways. And that's I'm not saying A&M is doing that, but anybody. I like 9 conference games. Heck, I like 10 because I go back to that 2020 season and how much when every game was a conference game, and how much fun was that?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Hey, OB, but if we get this one Big Ten game in the schedule, okay? If we get that one Big Ten game on the schedule, how much closer do you think that is to it being a separate world where the Big Ten and the SEC move over here? Do you think that is a step closer to that, or is it a step at keeping what we have right now?
I think it's probably a step closer to if they get that to getting the 4-4, what is it, 4-4-2-2-1-1, whatever. Anyway, what they want as far as the 4 teams in the playoff. I think. Now, I don't think that thing is assured that they're going to have an alliance and set up like a Big Ten challenge. But again, guys like Brian Kelly are talking about how they would like it. So we'll see where that goes.
Psychic Ag on the TexAgs.com page saying I should have allowed you to continue bashing our athletic director. I think you were just making a point about you weren't bad. You were just saying he could be more available. I didn't know that took a 15-minute segment, but I guess it does.
I'm just saying that look, he did a gaggle, and I was there. Travis Brown from the local TV station was there. But so were a lot of national writers that are going to get involved in all the big picture stuff. And then if you have things that you want to ask about A&M and delve into more about A&M, you really don't have as much time. So I just think it would, when you have your local media that'll make the financial commitment to cover your program, I don't think it's too much to ask. And he did that. I think last year or the year before, he took out some time, and I know he was presenting some things but other athletic directors took time to meet with their local media. I just think it's the right thing to do.
All right, let's hit a break here. I think we'll have McGee on the other side. Right now, we're talking about some pretty cool, exciting news coming to the Bryan College Station area. Comcast is moving here to Bryan College Station, and super excited about what they're going to be doing. They're going to be having a press conference here in a little bit. They're going to be gathered at the Stella Hotel for the big announcement. Comcast, the media tech giant, is bringing Xfinity and Comcast Business Services right here to Aggieland for the very first time. That means fast, secure, reliable fiber internet for 70,000 homes and businesses. Plus, they're rolling out brand new tech hub, more than 1,000 miles of fiber lines, and an interactive Xfinity retail store to keep you connected like never before. Whether you're an Aggie, a student, a local business, or just someone who loves streaming their live sports, get ready for the multi-gigabyte speeds and next-level connectivity. No more lag, no more buffering, slow downloads, just seamless lightning-fast service built for the digital age. There's going to be a lot more information on this here coming up soon. But what you want to do right now is just keep your eyes out for ComcastTexas.com, and you're going to learn all about it. And we'll give you details on the construction and the upcoming services really soon. It is Comcast moving right here to Bryan College Station. Why is he laughing?
Where is he?
He's in Destin.
Destin?
He's in Destin for the SEC spring meetings. Something tells me you were not paying attention to what's happening in the SEC.
No, but Destin, Florida?
Yeah.
Oh,
what a great trip,
right? Live it up for me, my man.
Yes.
He's going to be shirt off, drinking some
He's been in his Speedo already. He's done it.
He's got this Carabara. What's the shirt we discussed?
Guayavera.
I was, I had my shirt off laying on the beach yesterday, and a whole bunch of people from Greenpeace came by and tried to push me back into the water. Oh, but save the whale!
Save the whale.
Our QB1, Stephen McGee, with us here, Paragon Financial. Stephen, we've been kind of discussing a lot of the moving parts. It's not even moving parts, right, OB? It's more just a lot of yelling going on and arguing at the SEC spring meetings about the future of the college football playoffs, 9-game season, regular season. Do we have a Big Ten game each year? There's a lot of stuff but I feel like it's not moving in any direction other than being loud.
Yeah, a lot of loud noise. I'll tell you another loud noise. OB, I want to hear your take on this one. Is Dan Lanning, the Oregon coach? This is hilarious. These guys will lose their soul for a recruit. It jumps in a pool, right? In this
commit video, yeah.
In this commit video. And then
12 days later.
12 days later, he decommits. It's like, And you know what I love about Mike Elko? He's going to be true to who Mike Elko is. He's not going to change for anybody or any recruit. I do not expect to ever see the day when Mike Elko cannonballs into a pool to get a recruit.
Or dances around a recruit like Brian Kelly did a couple years ago.
Exactly. Doesn't that make you feel at least a little bit better as an Aggie fan? Like, we don't have to have that cringe moment.
Right.
I think they should take that video of Lanning jumping into the pool and then run in reverse. Okay.
Exactly. So I got another take.
Okay.
All right. So I want to hear y'all's beat on this one. So my friends and I have a strong take. We are not Adidas fans, and this may be unpopular to some. And I'm open for all the fire.
I'm Team Nike.
I am too. I would pay. I'm Jumpman. If A&M went to Jordan Brand, I would rather pay Jumpman to wear that logo and all of the excitement from a recruit perspective than have Adidas write a check to me to wear their stuff.
My understanding is, and I could be wrong here, and maybe Luke can fact check me. My understanding is Jordan Brand only does one team per state, and that's U of H in this state.
Oh,
that's my understanding, and Luke can fact check me on that. Or
breaks my heart.
But I'm pretty sure that's what the rule is.
What a move by them to lock them up. And if you're not Jumpman, as much as it pains me sometimes to go with Nike, I think you got to go with Nike. And it's not, oh, well, they're paying Texas twice as much as they're willing to pay you to wear Nike. I don't care.
Yeah.
You need to have a brand that relates.
Not true. Okay, so what is the rule, Luke?
Hey, Luke, how many schools have Jumpman right now?
There's not many. Yeah.
Michigan,
U of H, Florida. I think the Florida Gators.
UNC.
Oh, of course.
Luke, you're still whispering, bro. Like, be happy to be on air. Like,
North Carolina.
He's talking through that lip sweater he's got.
There is something with Brand Jordan, so I apologize if I'm wrong. There's something with why A&M would not be, and I'm sure one of our texters will send it in. But there is a reason that it won't happen.
Can you imagine OB on the beach in Destin, Florida, with a
Jumpman
Guayabera Jumpman shirt on?
Oh, bro.
Boy, it'd be a flock of ladies, be like a bunch of seagulls surrounding him everywhere he goes.
Yeah. I don't think it matters what gear I'm wearing. That happens anyway.
Hey, so Arcade Bickham came up with an interesting segment idea game that I'm going to play with you guys, all right? Returning players on this year's Aggie football team that could make a huge leap, all right? I'm going to read you some names, and if you want to add a name to this, that's fine. But let's pick one or two guys. And some of them I think are obvious, big leaps, but let's kind of go through it. Terry Bussey, Ashton Bethel Roman, Cassius Howell, Rylan Kennedy, Miles Davis, Jordan Lockhart, Dalen Evans, and DJ Hicks.
Oof, it's a good list, OB.
I got some of their stats if you need them from last year.
I think the most obvious that jumps out is Cassius Howell.
Cassius Howell, number one.
He's got to have an incredible year. We lose 3 guys off the D line that, the top 2 rounds. And if you don't, you've obviously got to have a quarterback to win in college football, but then you have to have a guy that can get after the quarterback and pressure him consistently and without having to bring the whole house.
Right.
I think that's the most obvious. Who's your most obvious, OB?
Well, you see the where I get stuck on things, huge leap, right? I think Cassius Howell's pretty good. I need him to make a leap, but he doesn't have as far to go to be an elite player as, say, a Rylan Kennedy or a Terry Bussey. And I've been hearing great things about Ashton Bethel Roman, but I got to see it. But we saw Bussey play, and you see the ability. But of course, he's playing a position he hadn't played before, so that's that growth. All those guys, I'd love to see DJ Hicks become the player that we all think he could be.
Yep.
If Bussey ends up being wide receiver 2, and you still get great Mario Craver, right? Like, if he becomes that level, what does that do for that offense? Now you have 3 guys that you can count on for big plays.
Well, he has the speed, and that's an element that you can't coach. We've talked at length about that. And a guy that can really threaten the defense over the top is so important. And he can do it out of the backfield too, which you get a lot of really good matchups whenever you have either a tight end or a running back out of the backfield on a linebacker, a lesser quality athlete. And so that does create opportunities. But Jordan Lockhart was a guy that we talked about too that popped in the spring game. And I know you've got some linebacker talent, but you can't have too much depth at that position. And you're going to be thrust out there. You're one injury away from him needing to have meaningful snaps. He looked really, really good. And to OB's point, Cassius Howell obviously has shown the most potential on the field to date, but I think the biggest leap he can make is just simply production.
Consistent production.
And that was something that even like a guy like Shamar Stewart, who was immensely talented, and maybe this wasn't all on him, but he had 3 sacks in, 3 years? The biggest leap that these guys can make is going from a very talented player to being a very consistent, every down guy that creates tackles for losses and production, pressures on the quarterback, and sacks.
Right. I do think Rylan Kennedy is a name that I hope to hear, like, he becomes a household name, right? Like, we know about him. He's played a little bit. The potential's there. But if he becomes that dude, now we're talking about a defense, because I do think Cassius Howell will be really good. I think we've seen enough that if he plays consistently, he'll be really good. If Rylan Kennedy steps up in that same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, hey, let's not forget, there's a pretty important name here that needs to take a huge leap if A&M's going to have any chance at all, and that's at your quarterback position. So Marcel's got to be the number 1 guy that you say, hey, when this list starts the year and ends the year, the guy that has to be at the center of the conversation that took the biggest leap for A&M to have a chance this year, Marcel Reed. You're not going to win any meaningful games in the SEC without elite quarterback play.
I don't have the quote in front of me, but last night, Coach Elko, the Capital City A&M Club meeting, talked about Reuben Owens, that, he returned from, a 5-month injury in 4 months, and he wasn't even 100%. Now with some time to really recover the level of player that he could become with what I think Le'Veon Moss is going to be what he was last year too.
Yeah, Le'Veon Moss, OB, he's a dog, right? I mean, he's got that in him.
He really is. He runs with a purpose. He runs mean. Looks for contact. Here's the thing about Le'Veon. We watched him. Remember the game? I know you do, David, Florida. There was like 2 plays where he runs into the line and it looks like the play's over, and he just fights his way out and turns it into a 20-yard game. And then I remember a game against Arkansas 2 years ago as a 4th and 1, and they handed the ball, and there's a guy from Arkansas that just comes crashing in, and he's going to stop him for like a 3-yard loss, and he spins away. And he picks up the first out. And then you go to the Missouri game last year, the first play of the second half, he goes 75 yards. And you think, well, where's the weakness of this guy? I've seen him run with power. I've seen him be shifty and be elusive. And then I saw him run away from the Missouri secondary. Maybe they're not the fastest guys, but you still did it. And I'm thinking, where's the weakness? Again, when he got hurt while
20-yard run,
finished off a 20-yard catch.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard
where's the weakness of this guy?
It's hard to argue, though, that there was a single player on the offense that had a more positive impact on the offense. I mean,
there wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
He was
obvious.
their best player.
Yeah, I mean, when he went down, our team went down with him. And
I'll say this,
which is why you need to have a team that can overcome those kind of injuries. Look, no team's going to be as good, but Texas lost several running backs. They were still, a play away from potentially going to the championship game. So you've got to be a team that's strong enough that can overcome injuries.
Yeah, well, overcome adversity, right? Yeah. Gary Kubiak used to tell. I thought it was very well taken. Every football team has to overcome 3 crises in the year, and that was certainly one of them. And you've got to be able to handle those events as a team and find a way to win football games despite it.
So we got to hit a break here, but I think they did overcome this one event, which was a change in quarterback, because no one was thinking in July that Connor Wigman was going to have the kind of season that he had. And to go to a guy who had not started, right, who was thrust into one game of action against Oklahoma State in a bowl game on the second play, not expecting to play, for him to do as well as he did, I know a lot of people like to give him a hard time. I thought he exceeded any expectation I had for him.
Well, to have quarterback issues and be at the top of the SEC
November 1st, right?
Going into week 9?
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
All right, let's hit a break here. We'll do a little buy-sell lease on the other side. Right now, we're talking Bird Dog. They're revolutionizing range management and honey access and also fishing access. This past week, I went with Ben Sweat, had a blast at Port O'Connor, caught myself a 27.5-inch redfish. It was a great experience. We did put it back in the water. I wanted to eat it, though, I ain't gonna lie. But it was a great event, and Bird Dog set it all up. Got to go with my sons. Wonderful event. They can do that for you. They can do that for a group of buddies. They can do it for just about anybody. Bird Dog is changing the game. When you want to go hunting, you want to go fishing, let them be the Airbnb for the outdoors for you. They set it all up for you. And if you own a ranch, let them help you find the tax benefits that you've been missing. You probably don't know about all these tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. The website, birddogit.com. Birddogit.com. Check it out. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour coming to a close here. And guys, I want to do a buy-sell lease because I just did a bird dog spot, and it's kind of a bird dog-ish one. College coaches, you have to go hunting or fishing with. And I'm not going to give you ideal candidates. Maybe they're ideal, but I'm not going to give you Coach Elko, right? Like, I think that would be a cool one to go one. I'm going to give you maybe a little polarizing ones. Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, Deion Sanders.
Oh,
let's go.
Well, I know what I'm doing.
OB?
I'm fishing with Deion Sanders. He's well-known as being a very accomplished fisherman.
Yeah.
And that's not a joke.
But I'm thinking about like the conversation, like everything, the whole experience, not just who gets the most fish.
He probably would have a lot to say.
I'll tell you, I think my order is, well, no, it's not. It's probably a little bit different if you're buy, sell, lease the actual coach.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy Lane Kiffin. I can imagine the
I'm buying Lane
stories
Kiffin too.
that he has are phenomenal. I love his Nick Saban stories that I've heard over the years.
Pretty much anything he talks about minus A&M, I like.
I do too.
But before you got to tell me, like if I'm fishing with him, are we going saltwater or freshwater?
I was about to ask. Like you got to.
Well played.
OB, would that be your first question?
I want to go with Kiffin. I'm buying Kiffin if it's freshwater.
Absolutely. If he would go through all of his aliases and talk about the stories behind them,
that would be so good.
I think
we all are selling BK, right, Brian Kelly?
1,000%. That just seems like a long day. As my friend would say, I'd rather watch flies make love on a pile of cow dung.
Look, the guy is obviously a very good coach. And they may be, I know OB's not sold on them this year, but they may be really, really good this year. But his personality doesn't seem like one I would like to spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, it doesn't seem conducive to having a good hang for sure.
And I think Deion, one of two things could happen. Same with Lane. I'm either going to get super annoyed or laugh my butt off. One of those
Deion,
two.
I could see being a good hang. I wouldn't want my kid to play for him, but.
Were you ever around Deion?
No.
Because I've heard people say that there's Deion and then there's prime time, and when he's not performing, that he's actually a pretty decent guy. But
yeah, I can see that.
I'm just going by what I've been told because I've not experienced either.
Guys, I have we got about a minute and a half left. I'm going to read this little blurb from Conor O'Gara talking about just some of the talks from the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, and he kind of looks at all angles. And he has this little section of it. He goes, of the current Big 12 schools, do you know which program won the last national title? It was Colorado in 1990. Also of note, the Big 12 has a 1-7 record in playoff games, with the lone win coming via TCU in 2022, who lost 65-7 in a national championship game. The ACC, on the other hand, does have the 2010 Clemson teams, but they're the only current ACC member who won a playoff game and has yet to win a New Year's Six Bowl or a playoff game in the 2020s. And he goes on to say, history shouldn't dictate the future crowd. But just very interesting, we talk about the ACC and the Big 12 being down, and then you hear those numbers, how down they really are in the big scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I still, without going into all the details, I like the idea of a major conference. I think you put the best 50 teams together where it's fair, they can all compete from an NIL dollars perspective, and you let them go at it, and then the bottom 5 get rotated out, like the Premier League in soccer.
Yeah.
And then you have 5 teams that get bumped up that have done really well.
I love that idea.
I do too, and I think it would just, like random draw every year. You're going to play 10 games, and then there's a 4-game playoff with the top 20 teams.
OB, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've always thought eventually it's going to be a super conference of like 60 teams, or super league. I shouldn't say conference, a division.
Yeah.
And then, let the teams that are, quote, Division I, but can't compete at that level have their own division.
Got to drop it right there. Gentlemen, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Jumpman. We got to get Jumpman at A&M to start something.
I think Luke lied to us. It's TexAgs Live. We'll see you in a bit. And we're back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 2 of the program. Let's go to the Bumpy's Catering Hotline. Chris Gordy joining us, program director, on-air talent at Sports Talk 790, and also you can find his work at LockedOnSEC. We see him all over the place. Gordy, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, David? Good to talk with you, man.
So the set looks different. It's more blue and more thin. Am I right? Is that a different look, or am I making things up?
It's similar setup. We've just added more bobbleheads and more bourbon back there. So
good for you. Sounds like a party, man. What do you think of, like, so Obi and I started the show today, just like the SEC, it just seems like a lot of complaining and posturing and, you know, like, is anything actually going to happen? Does it feel, or is it feels like almost a show for the media and a show for the other conferences?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. I mean, for everybody who was getting up in arms with what Greg Sankey had to say earlier this week, I just said, you know, reminder, we do this with Roger Goodell in the NFL every year, right? Like, everybody loves to hate on Goodell. He's the enemy and all this. But then you take a step back and go, who does he work for? Well, he works for the NFL owners. He's literally doing the owner's bidding. Same thing here. Greg Sankey is doing what's best for the SEC and, you know, to make his school presidents and athletic directors and head coaches happy. So I don't give a damn if it pisses off the Big 12 or the WAC or the ACC. Like, the SEC is here to look out for their best interests. And I think it's so silly when we get into the greater good of college football. Look, this is a day and age where we're doing revenue sharing. The SEC's got $1 billion contract with Disney and ESPN. Like, we're now giving some of that money to the players. The SEC's got to do what's best for the SEC. And so, you know, them and the Big Ten kind of partnering up and saying, look, you know, let's kind of push our weight around here. We've got the biggest brands in all of college sports. I think they're justified in that. And anybody who gets angry at it, well, okay, well, go watch your Fresno States or your Boise States and root on your, you know, lower tier football. But I think the bigger picture here that we continue to find out, David, and if you didn't know already, is that not all conferences are created equal. Not all schedules are created equal. It is not a level playing field by any means. Yet we're trying to figure out a playoff field as if it's a level playing field. It's just a tough case to make because in the NFL, look, you're playing a 17-game NFL schedule no matter who you're playing, right? I mean, some have it tougher, some have it easier, but at least you're all playing NFL opponents. In college football, it's not that way. I mean, Boise State's schedule does not compare to the schedule that Texas A&M is going to play in 2026. So it's tough to try to make all these massive decisions, broad decisions that affect all these different schools and conferences and all this. But again, to me, it comes back to the SEC's got to look out for its own. They're in the profitability business and in making the most money for their schools. And so more power to Greg Sankey on kind of standing his ground on a lot of these big decisions. And no, he does not owe it to the greater good of college football to make decisions for, you know, all the smaller schools in the rest of the country.
Gordy, where the NFL has it right and college football could take a page from is that, yeah, you know, there was those years, and it still happens, where the AFC South is considered a down division in the NFL, right? But they still had to play every couple of years a different division. So it could be the NFC East one year that you're playing against those games. And I think if college football did something like that, where it's like, all right, you're going to have your 8 conference games. You're going to have, like, I like the idea of 2 Big Ten games for the SEC. So go 8 as opposed to 9, 2 Big Ten games, 1 on the road, 1 at home. And then maybe a revolving Big 12/ACC or some kind of format where the ACC teams do get to play 1 or 2 SEC teams or 1 or 2 Big Ten teams.
Yeah, I think 2 things here. One, I think you got to have the cupcakes because coaches are going to always want to argue for the cupcakes because that's what gets them to their easier wins. I mean, I think, you know, you look at a Mark Stoops at Kentucky and, you know, he sees his 3 Rena wins as, okay, that's 3 wins there. So then I just need to win 3 wins in the conference and I'm good. The other part of this is the non-conference rivalry games. And Kentucky's got one with Louisville. Florida's got it with Florida State. South Carolina with Clemson. I just think if we do move towards the 9-game conference schedule that it sounds like we're going to move to within the next couple of years, you know, if you're Shane Beamer at South Carolina, you're going, all right, we're going from 8 SEC games to 9 SEC games. Do I really want to keep this rivalry game with Clemson every year? That's like another tough hurdle for me. And I get people in our YouTube comments have been saying, oh, if you're scared, go home. Look, it's not that. It's coaches are looking out for themselves. Like, I know 6-6, I keep my job most likely at the middle tier schools. But, you know, you want to avoid as many pitfalls as possible. And so if we do go in the future, Dave, and we go, okay, we're going to 9 SEC games, and we're going to have a Big Ten SEC, crossover that we're playing a Big Ten team every year. Theoretically, you could have a South Carolina team that has an 8-game conference schedule that adds a 9th game. Let's just say theoretically that's Georgia gets added to their schedule. And they're playing Clemson in non-conference. And then let's say their Big Ten matchup is against Penn State or Michigan. That's a brutal schedule. I mean, look, fans will love it because fans want to see the big-time games, but I'm just telling you, the coaches are looking out what's best for them, and they're trying to avoid as many pitfalls and losses as possible. The past 2 years, I brought it up. Go look at what Ohio State and Michigan's non-conference opponents were the last 2 years when they won the national championship. It's embarrassing. So, again, everybody trying to point fingers at the SEC and asking us to beef up. The SEC has had no problems playing tough non-conference games. In fact, week 1 every year, somebody's playing a dominant opponent. Look at A&M, opened with Notre Dame last year. I mean, they go above and beyond. I think we're going to say goodbye to those if we do this ACC Big Ten matchup on top of going to 9 SEC game schedule.
By the way, I had that tweet pulled up. SEC gets killed for their non-conference games in November. You posted in 2023. Michigan, ECU, UNLV, Bowling Green, 2024, by the way, the 2 national champions. Ohio State had Akron, West Virginia, and Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Mike Elko going, dude, let's get Notre Dame off the schedule. Let's schedule, Blinn College or somebody. Let's get somebody in here who's easier because, again, you play in the Big Ten, great, but, Ohio State and Michigan basically have to get up for 2 games a year. Right? It's the game where they play each other and maybe like a Penn State or something. For the SEC, there's going on the road out of South Carolina, it's a tough environment. Nobody's going to look at that as, that's a really tough game, but it just is in the grind of the conference. So again, if we want to go to a 9-game conference schedule, great. But again, the coaches and everybody behind closed doors are going to be saying, we need to make this thing easier on ourselves in the non-con. And again, the luck of the draw. If you do an SEC Big Ten challenge, there will be some years where you get, Rutgers. But there will be other years where it's USC or Michigan or Ohio State. And it's just going to be like, my God, this schedule is a behemoth.
So do you think, because I started the show thinking the 5-11 model is better for the SEC. OB, I think, was leaning towards the 4-4-2-2-1 for the SEC. I just feel like more years than not, the SEC is probably going to have 5 teams that get in the 5-11 model. If it's the 4-4-2-2-1, which for those who don't understand, 4 for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the other 2 conferences each, and then 1 for the when you look at it from that perspective, which one do you think gives the SEC the advantage?
Well, there's 2 things here. If you do the first one, there's an opportunity for more SEC teams to get in, I feel like, because more often than not, go look at the rankings last year. I don't know how they finished, but, if we go to a 16-team playoff, more often than not, you're going to have 4 to 5 SEC teams in the playoff because of that. If you do the 4-4, 2-2-1 model, I like it because it guarantees the SEC 4 teams a year. And now people are going to say, oh, well, you shouldn't guarantee anything. Look, again, take a step back. The SEC more than likely would get 4 teams in no matter what anyway. But to me, this just saves against the safeguard of, David, you look at this past year where you had an Indiana who ran through the Big Ten but didn't really play any of the tough teams of the Big Ten. I think what's going to happen is a lot of these years you're going to have the MAC champion sitting there like a Boise who played nobody but is sitting there undefeated, and the committee's going, well, they have to get in. And then you're going to have the Big Ten where Michigan and Ohio State are both 11-1, and then you've got that team on the outside that didn't play for the Big Ten title, but they're sitting there at 11-1. So, in other words, there's going to be years where you're going to have a lot of those teams sitting there going, hey, we deserve a chance. We deserve a chance. And there could be a year where it leaves some SEC 2-loss, 3-loss teams out. And, again, the four guaranteed spots for the SEC, I think I like it just because it guarantees that safeguard against some of those big at-large teams sitting there going, oh, well, the Big Ten, they should get, or the ACC, they've got a couple of 1-loss teams, they should get in. No, let's make sure that some crappy SMU is not getting in over 2-loss A&M because they played nobody in the ACC.
Chris, let's play a game, reasons for optimism and reasons for concern. I'll give you a team. You give me some reasons for optimism and concern, all right?
All right, let's do it.
Let's start off with Texas A&M. Give me reasons for this team to be a 9-3, 10-2 team, or worse than they were last year.
Well, they've added weapons around Marcel Reed. I love what they've done in the portal with the wide receiver help that they've gotten. I think the backfield, I'm going to be doing, David, here in a couple weeks in the middle of summer. I always do my 10 hot takes for the upcoming season. I've already put out there, I think one of my hot takes is that A&M is going to lead the SEC in rushing. I just think that with having Levy and Moss and Amari Daniels and getting Reuben Owens back healthy, I just think that the offensive line's got to do their thing, but I keep looking at what they're doing there, and I think they've retooled this thing, and I think they're going to be a strength this year. I think A&M will lead the SEC in rushing, so I'm optimistic on it. Again, the schedule's it's tough, but it's navigatable. If Marcel Reed takes that next step with those pass-catching weapons that they've added, I think the offense can be the center point of the strength this season. With the defense will be good as it always is under a Mike Elko defense.
Let's talk about LSU. Give me the high and low. Why will they be significantly better? Why could they take a step back?
Yeah, to me, the biggest concern is the defense. They've added a lot of pieces. You get Harold Perkins back. You got a lot of pieces that they've added through the portal, but it's got to click. That secondary has got to be better. If they have an improved secondary, like it looks on paper like they do, you bring back the only 4,000-yard returning passer in Garrett Nussmeier. They've reworked that offensive line. People keep saying they think it's going to take a big step back because Will Campbell was a first-round pick and Emory Jones got drafted, but there were times last year where those guys didn't pull their weight. I mean, there were times where they were getting beat, and you're going, wait, these are supposed to be high draft picks. So I think LSU can get by. Nussmeier, it's all about that leap. Does he take the Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow-like leap, where both of those guys came off decent, first years as starters at LSU and then went to monster Heisman years in year two? Nussmeier can do it. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but he's got that ability to take that leap. And this is hands down the most talented team on paper that Brian Kelly has had since he's been at LSU. No excuses. I mean, look, it used to be in the BCS era, David, you had to go undefeated and make the championship game. You get 2 losses now. Like, you can lose 2 games. I think week 1, though, is a must-win for LSU. They must win at Clemson. If they win that one, it buys them 2 losses the rest of the way. 10-2, I think they're a playoff team.
Is his job in jeopardy if they're 9-3 or worse?
I mean, the buyout is still massive, and I think we're going to see more and more of these conversations with the revenue sharing and every athletic department kind of tightening the belt a little bit. I mean, his seat will be hot, no doubt. The natives will be restless, but I don't think we're talking LSU firing him or anything. But, yeah, I think everybody starts to look at Brian Kelly a little sideways going, dude, you left Notre Dame because you said you couldn't win a title there and you could at LSU. Well, look at Notre Dame. They just played for a title, with Marcus Freeman there. It's high time. This is year 4. All 3 of the past coaches for LSU by year 4 had played for and won a national championship. Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Ogeron. Brian Kelly's got no excuses this year.
All right, let's move on to Florida. A reason for optimism, reason that they could potentially be worse.
Optimism is DJ Lagway. I mean, he is hands down one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, and the hope is he continues to develop into that. Has that shoulder injury that's a little bit of a concern, but they say he's going to play through it and he's going to be fine. Again, to me, I was talking to somebody on the field at the Cotton Bowl, one of the national writers, and he said, all this hype about Arch Manning, he goes, I think in the future, number 1 draft pick conversation in the NFL draft, I would prefer DJ Lagway. Just the kid has got all the skills and all the talent in the world. I think the ceiling for him is through the roof. So if Florida's going to have a good year, it's because DJ Lagway has a very special year. Now, the opposite of that, David, is the schedule is still brutal. I mean, there's no free passes here. It's an absolutely brutal schedule. And so Billy Napier, yeah, look, he saved his job last year, but he still is very much on the hot seat going into this year. If they don't get, 6-6 or better, and I think even 6-6, there's conversations about do we move on, but a 5-7 or lower year, he's gone.
All right, let's move on to Texas. Everybody has them as the best team not everybody, most people have them as the best team in the SEC and in the country. Give me a reason for optimism, a reason they could fall a little bit.
Look, I joke I'm an arch truther. I like the kid. I've had the chance to talk to him a couple times. He's mature beyond his years. I think he's going to be awesome, but I think he's going to be awesome in 2026. I think in 2025, he's going to go through some ups and downs, and I think this is a transition year for Texas. They lost a ton to the draft and to graduation. They've recruited great. Yes, absolutely, but the next man up mentality, look, I'll give Georgia the benefit of the doubt because Kirby's track record there has shown next man up, they just rotate in the next group. This is the first time we're going to see Sark tested with who's your next group? Is this next batch of players going to be elite or not? I think they go through some development with those guys. I think this is maybe, if I'm erring on the side of caution, David, I think this is more like a 9-3 type season for Texas. I think they take a little bit of a step back. I think they get everybody, their feet wet and get a lot of experience. I think 2026, we're talking again about Texas as a national championship contender. But look, everybody's riding off the success of the last 2 years. Well, Sark's made the playoff 2 straight years. Of course, he's going to do a 3rd straight year. Look, man, it's tough to win in this conference, and replacing all the pieces they did specifically on the offensive line, Jake Majors and Kelvin Banks and all these pieces they got to replace. I think Texas has a little bit of a transition year. Again, 9-3, I think any other program would say, sign me up for that. I'll take it. But I just think it's not going to be that 11-1 undefeated type season people think. Well,
then how important is that Ohio State game for both programs, right? Because they're both going to be starting new quarterbacks, one with a little bit more experience, right? To me, if they win that game, it certainly sets them up for a potentially 10-2 season. You lose it, that's where the 9-3, I don't think 8-4, but potentially 8-4 talk comes from.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, it's a big one in that it's the first game of the season. It's the first game of the Arch Manning era underway. But again, Texas can lose that one and still win the SEC. And again, as we know, 10-2 gets you in. But, I look at it, a road trip at Florida. I think Oklahoma's going to be much improved. We'll see on the road trips to Kentucky and Mississippi State. They shouldn't have an issue there. Vanderbilt, they get at home, but obviously Diego Pavia, that's a wild card. At Georgia feels like a loss. And then, yes, they get A&M at home, but, we all saw that thing was a dogfight till the very end last year. I think it'll be a dogfight again this year. It's a rivalry game. So, look, the schedule's not the toughest, once again, because we kept the opponents the same. They avoid the LSUs, Tennessees, Alabama. All the tougher part of the conference they avoid. But still, it's an important game if Texas does have playoff hopes, because it leaves them very little room for error the rest of the way. Again, they lucked out that it's a day game and not a night game in the Horseshoe. But to me, I don't know if I'm going to necessarily say if Texas beats Ohio State that they're absolutely a playoff team. I think there's still more pitfalls on that schedule.
All right, let's do another one. Auburn. Reason for optimism, reason that maybe Hugh Freeze is looking for a job.
Yeah, a reason for optimism, that wide receiver room is incredible. You go out and get Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech. You add him with Cam Coleman and all these other great young pieces that you had last year. Perry Thompson, he's recruited well. Top 10 recruited classes the last couple seasons, but they've got to find the quarterback. Peyton Thorne was not the answer. Is Jackson Arnold, a former 5-star recruit that, look, he got beat up at Oklahoma last year. He lost his entire wide receiver room. The offensive line didn't protect him, and he got beat up. So I can't hold the past against Jackson Arnold. But does the past come back to haunt him? Is he in his own head where, his confidence gets shattered because of what happened in the past at Oklahoma? To me, this is monumental. Hugh Freeze has got to get the most out of his quarterback. He's got a good recruit in Deuce Knight sitting behind him. So if Jackson Arnold, the moment's too big for him, they may just throw the true freshman out there, Deuce Knight. But to me, it's got to come for that quarterback spot. We got to see improvement there. And to me, David, I look at that week 1 game at Baylor. I think it's going to be on a Friday night. If Auburn loses that game right out of the gates, you could just start to see the spiral coming where this thing spirals out of control. But again, for optimism, God, they were close in so many games last year. 1-score games that just didn't go their way. If they can flip the script, 8-4 type season, arrow pointed upward, and Hugh Freeze saves his job.
All right, last thing for you. Give me 2-3 quarterbacks that have a limited resume that you think could potentially be pretty big names this year.
Well, one guy, his resume is impressive, but I don't think a lot of SEC fans know him, and that's John Matera at Oklahoma that, comes in with his offensive coordinator in Ben Arbuckle. I think that he has a chance to really take this league by storm. And you look at Oklahoma, obviously Brent Venables in the defense, that's always been the strength. Last year, the offense is what was the detriment to them. I think if they can get some consistency there, they bring in Jaden Ott, the running back from Cal. If they can get that offense going, I think we're talking about potentially a 10-2 type ceiling for Oklahoma, maybe a playoff team. Keep in mind, Oklahoma in the past decade, they've been the playoff team, not right. Texas. Like Oklahoma's had all the playoff success and making the postseason. So that's the norm for them. If they can get at least the most out of John Matera, I think we'll be talking about him going, oh, this guy, like he's in contention for one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. So that's one. keep an eye on Blake Shapen at Mississippi State. This is a guy who threw for a ton of yards at Baylor. He got hurt early last year and missed the rest of the season. He's back healthy now. This is a guy who's got a ton of yards on his resume. And again, expectations are very low at Mississippi State. I don't think they're going to be, I don't even think they'll get to 6-6, but I think that's a team that could play spoiler and pull off an upset or two in the SEC this year, win a game that they're not supposed to win, because Blake Shapen is that good.
Gordy, great stuff, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Anytime, David. Thanks, man.
Later, buddy. Chris Gordy on the Bucky's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Around the SEC. I think Luke's got something cracking for that. He's giving me a look like, I don't know. But, yes, I think Luke's got that for us. Right now, Aggieland, get ready. Comcast is coming. Xfinity and Comcast Business are expanding to Bryan College Station. They're bringing cutting-edge fiber internet to 70,000 homes and businesses. Whether it's streaming your favorite team, gaming, or growing your business, Comcast's ultra-fast and secure network is built for you. With multi-gigabyte speeds and unmatched reliability, this expansion is a game changer. Businesses will thrive, students will have seamless access to online learning, and most importantly, sports fans can enjoy crystal clear entertainment without interruptions, and it's just the beginning. Comcast is also building a new tech hub, rolling out 1,000 miles of fiber and opening a state-of-the-art Xfinity retail store. The investment strengthens the local economy, provides new opportunities, and makes sure that everyone in Aggieland has access to connectivity that they deserve. Stay tuned, Aggieland. The future is fast. Learn more at ComcastTexas.com/BCS. That is ComcastTexas.com/BCS.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
And we're back. TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for Around the SEC, and that is presented by the Jaxer Group. Luke Evangelos doing a little Around the SEC. Luke, certainly Luke is Luke. What do you have for us?
Well, I've got a lot of interesting stuff for you, and I'm going to focus on, well, you guessed it, some basketball, because what better time to get on the Buckyball hype train than right now? And some great news. If you were asleep maybe on Tuesday, you might have seen that Mackenzie Mbako, the transfer from Indiana, withdrew from the NBA draft. And that's a big piece and a big bonus for A&M's roster. But he wasn't the only second-round pick.
There was a bunch, right?
Yeah, and we're about to go through them. And the SEC is going to be loaded next year. A lot of these guys were fringe first or second-round picks, and they chose to ultimately go back to school and withdraw from the draft. Some of them even after saying that they were going to stay in the draft. And so you will see, wow, now look at that beautiful lower third. Nick Savage just
If you would like
supplied.
to join the conversation, you can call us or text us at 979-693-1150. Go ahead.
Yes, you can. So a lot of these guys were going to make close to maybe $2 million, but be in the G League. So now in this NIL era, as you've seen in college baseball, a lot more players are choosing to go the college route than just sign straight out of high school. And that effect is starting to hit the NBA and as well as the SEC right now. So in addition to Mackenzie Mbako, Alex Condon was one of the best players for Florida last year. He forgoes being a potential first-round pick to come back to Florida. Boogie Flan transferred from Arkansas to Florida while staying in the NBA draft process. Originally said he was going to stay in the draft, and at the very last deadline, he comes back to Florida. Otega Oweh yesterday from Kentucky, who was their best player last year after you saw Kirk Harisa and Jackson Robinson get hurt. It was Otega Oweh who stepped up, the former Oklahoma transfer. He's coming back to Kentucky. And then two stud freshmen who are probably going to see their names on a first or second team All-SEC list in the preseason. Tahad Pettiford from Auburn and LeBaron Philon from Alabama, both announcing that they're returning to school. LeBaron Philon just a week ago said he was 100% committed to staying in the draft, and so Nate Oates had to go do some digging in the portal. But then, as of just about 12 hours ago, a buzzer beater at the deadline, LeBaron Philon decides to come back to Alabama. So those two teams, Alabama and Auburn, are going to have their two stud freshmen back next year.
Thank you, Luke. Appreciate you. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Reese Nygren, what do you have for us?
3 former Texas and current Texas A&M women's golf members, Vanessa Boravilos, Haley Cooper, and Lauren Nguyen, are set to compete at the 80th U.S. Women's Open at Erin Hills beginning today. Boravilos is making her first appearance at the prestigious major event. She won her qualifier at Elgin Country Club May 12th to earn her spot in the field. Cooper's making her second trip to the U.S. Women's Open after clinching a spot at the Canyon Creek Country Club qualifier April 17th. Her first appearance was in 2018, where she made the cut and finished tied for 55th. Nguyen is also making her U.S. Women's Open debut after earning her ticket to the major at the St. Clair Country Club qualifier on April 28th.
Thank you very much, Reese. Appreciate you. When we come back here on TexAgs Live, Aaron Torres, AT, he's taking a couple of weeks off because he thinks he isn't that important anymore. He can just do whatever he wants. We'll talk to him about a lot of the Aggie basketball stuff because he's been following it, and he thinks A&M is probably a tournament team. So we'll talk to him about his thoughts on that. Right now, agriculture families understand something that city folks often miss: live moves and seasons, and each one matters. Farm and Ranch Films, the newest offering from Heritage Films, helps you bottle those moments before they're gone. Imagine your grandchildren not seeing your operation, what it looked like, but understanding the principles that it was built on. And Chance McClain and his team, they don't just film interviews, they create a cinematic legacy that you can watch for generation after generation to understand with a Netflix-style, BBC-style, television, HBO production. From the daily routines to once-in-a-lifetime moments, Chance McClain is going to capture it all and make this agricultural story unique to you and your family. Don't wait until it's too late. Visit yourheritagefilm.com. That is yourheritagefilm.com, and click on the Farm and Ranch or call them up 713-893-8341. It is Heritage Films. All right, guys, let's talk about some new partners, Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. They're Aggie owned and operated. They are an mobile IV hydration company that was founded back in 2024. I met with Sheldon and Danny over the last week, and they're awesome people. They really know what they're doing. They're proud to serve Bryan College Station with awesome services like IV hydration, Botox, and even some weight loss options. Whether you're looking for a quick boost of hydration or dehydration preventative, they can tailor an IV cocktail specific to your needs. And on a busy weekend, I know some of you guys might be partying a little bit too much. If that's the case, an IV can be one of the easiest ways to ensure you're receiving all those necessary vitamins and minerals that make you feel better. Their overall mission is to bring a more personalized and accessible wellness option to the broader range of clientele here in the Bryan College Station and Brazos Valley area. To book an appointment or inquire about it, just call them up or text them. 979-217-1561. Again, it's Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. Check them out. It's our friends at Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for Around College Athletics, brought to you by Milliken Reserve. We go to the Bucky's Catering Hotline. Mr. Hibernation, Aaron Torres, joining us here on the program, Fox Sports Radio, and Aaron Torres online. AT, what's up, buddy? This is good. Hi.
Name are you calling me here at 7:30 Pacific time?
Mr. Hibernation?
Oh, no, I'm in zero hibernation. I've never been less hibernating right now.
I'm just saying you were gone for a couple weeks. You did give me updates. You give me a hard time when I take my 6 days of vacation a year. So I'm just going to throw it right back at you.
Yeah, no, zero hibernation from this guy. I mean, it's just go, full speed ahead. No, all gas, no brakes. I think I'm the first person to ever use that term. So, yeah. Oh, wait, I'm not. Never mind.
Okay. Buddy, one thing that I know, when there's big college basketball news, you're going to be all over it. And I know you've been going through a bunch of the dudes that decided to not go into the NBA draft and go back to their programs. Luke, just a moment ago, went through the list of a bunch of SEC teams. And the top of the list, of course, is Mbako, who says, I'm going to stay at Texas A&M. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to stay at Texas A&M, or I'm going to show up at Texas A&M. Listen, I wasn't in Chicago for all the pre-draft stuff, but it felt like he was really one of the big winners. And, I'll say this for people who don't know a ton about his background, and I know how passionate Aggies fans are, so I'm sure everybody knows, like, he was one of the top players in his class in 2023. And I think, listen, it's all hindsight now, but probably didn't make the right decision going to Indiana. Old school coach, kind of old school system, couple big guys clogging the lane. And I think when he got into that more wide open NBA style, he seemed to thrive in Chicago. And so with that, nothing is more wide open than Bucky McMillan, basketball. So, he was a guy that, big name, but I didn't really know the fit. But I do think that the Chicago event really made me more confident that he can be not only a serviceable player, but potentially a very good player. And if he takes on kind of a star-ish type role alongside some of the other pieces that Bucky McMillan has brought in, I all of a sudden think it's a much more interesting team. I think the one thing they were missing was kind of a star difference maker. And if he can be that guy, then I look at Texas A&M basketball with all the other pieces that Bucky's brought in. And I'll be real, I do see a team that's capable of making the tournament in year one. Don't know that I would have said I felt that way, even 2 weeks ago, a week ago, but you start to look at all the pieces. A lot of them fit, a lot of them make sense, and a lot of them could play well together.
Well, let's talk about that because, again, I don't know how it's going to play out. Nobody does, right? Chemistry and team unity and learning a new system all takes time. But I am so intrigued by the numbers, right? I know the quality of player that they're bringing in, quality of players, and I look at the numbers and I'm like, in a high up-tempo offense that's going to press and is going to shoot and is going to do all these things, this team could be one of those teams that, maybe they're not one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC, but they're the kind of team you are not going to want to play. That's what it feels like today.
Well, 100%. I think the important thing, as we learned last year, you don't have to be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC. And, maybe this is a conversation for later in the segment, because I think we're getting to that point in all sports where, hey, regular season, it is what it is. But, in basketball last year, look, Arkansas started 0-5, not only made the NCAA tournament, but made the Sweet 16. Ole Miss finished 8th place in the SEC, made the Sweet 16. You had teams finishing 8 and 10 in the regular season, making the NCAA tournament. So I don't think the league's going to be quite as good next year, quite as deep. But I do think that, listen, you don't have to be in this world, especially in this, the net ranking where it's so heavily favored towards power conference teams. You don't have to be top 3, top 4, top 5. And, unfortunately, I think it takes a little bit away from the regular season, but the goal is to be peaking towards late in the season. And you have a coach with a track record of winning. It is an entirely new group, but you could see the scenario where, maybe there's lumps early, but as they all get comfortable with each other, they're playing well. And I do think that, to your exact point, they're going to be a challenge for everybody to play. It's a unique style, and I think they really could be peaking as we get towards the back end of the season.
Talking to Aaron Torres here on TexAgs Live. I'm going to throw you some of these names and just your thoughts of some of these players. So, like the addition of Rylan Griffin, we know what he was able to do. Rashawn Agee, Pop Isaacs, as we've talked about, Jakari Lane. So some of these names, are these names that you were familiar with before? Jakari Lane, obviously not at North Alabama, but some of these other names that you've heard do big things?
Yeah, so, Pop Isaacs, I've known about forever. He played in the Big 12, was at Creighton last year. I think the big thing you're just worried about with him is really back-to-back, essentially season-ending injuries. Rylan Griffin, yeah, we know the history. And, listen, I think that with Rylan Griffin, I'm just curious what he is. He's a guy that scored double figures 2 years ago on a Final Four team, goes to Kansas, and, did he make a mistake? Did Bill Self make a mistake? It was a disappointing season overall for Kansas, so I'm not going to put it all on him. And then I'll say this, Sean Agee was at USC. Obviously, I live in L.A., and I remember going to practices last summer for USC, and, you kind of, there's 4 or 5 guys on the roster that you're kind of familiar with, and, who's this kind of stocky guy that's shooting threes and making plays? He was, at times, their best player last year, and they've had a big offseason themselves. So I actually do like all of the pieces. I actually think, weirdly, they all kind of fit together. They all kind of bring something a little bit different to the table. But, yes, I could absolutely see a scenario where they all fit well, they all play well, and, again, to my point, they're an NCAA tournament caliber team come next February, March.
All right, AT, I want you to expand a little bit on SEC teams trying to make you forget that there were a lot of, very average football teams in the conference last year?
Yeah, there were. I'm apparently the only one that remembers that. I hope that, you need to check in with your buddy Ryan Fowler, see what kind of medicine they have down in Alabama, because I think, Kalen DeBoer has a little case of amnesia. We have to check in on him, make sure he's okay. Listen, I'll spare everybody the soapbox rant. I was never in favor of expanding to 12. We get to 12. We know we're not stopping at 12. And, I just think we're not only dangerously close, we are officially on the slippery slope of turning I don't even think we're on the slope of. I think we're about to turn the best regular season in all of sports into some fun we do on Saturdays. And listen, I know the audience that I'm talking to. I know that 100,000 people are going to show up at Kyle Field the 6-7 times that Texas A&M plays a home game. But what made college football was you walk out of that building more than once or twice in a season with a loss, you had a lot of questions and people had to have answers. And if you didn't have answers, we're going to find somebody else. And now, you look at what a 16-team playoff would have looked like last year, and you just sit there and say, I think Alabama's the perfect example. It was, by any tangible measurement, a disappointing season. They were, by any tangible measurement, a disappointing team, and they just would have been grandfathered into the postseason, and the regular season meant nothing. By the way, Ohio State lost the 2 biggest games on their schedule, including as a 21-point favorite at home to their biggest rival, and it meant absolutely nothing. And so, listen, nobody's consulting me. I have no say in the matter. But what I think most people loved about college football, besides rooting for their school, was following a sport where the stakes were high every single week. And we're basically already at the point that that's not the case. And I think it's certainly not going to be the case as we get to 16. As far as auto bids, that's a different conversation. I think it makes it even worse. But, listen, I don't like where the sport is going, but nobody's asking me. So, once we get to wherever we're going, I'm still going to cover it. I'm still going to talk about it. I'm still going to come on TexAgs every week. But I don't think it's for the good of the sport. And I have a little follow-up, but I know I'm going long. So I have one more thought on that, but I'll spare everybody the
you
rant.
give me the thought, because I did want to say this. I think there's 2 different conversations that get morphed into one. Would Alabama beat Indiana, or would Alabama beat SMU if they played against each other? Yes, I think they would. I think they would have destroyed them last year. I can't guarantee that, because Alabama did make some major mistakes by losing to Vandy and Oklahoma late, right? So there is that. But deserving based on your resume, and then people can look at what that means. What does resume mean? You didn't play anybody. But if you are 11-1 or 12-0 in a conference, and your other team is 9-3, I think your record should matter, even if I think the other team would win.
Well, and that's, listen, I'm not a trust the analytics blindly person, but my eye test is different than your eye test, David Nuño. My eye test tells me that they had a mutual opponent. Indiana beat Michigan. Alabama got destroyed by Michigan. So it's like, but in the bottom line is that, to that point, yes, I understand that eye tests should, to a degree, matter, and I think that but there also has to be a baseline. Thank you. there should still be a baseline understanding of, games have to matter during the regular season. So I just bring it up because, to me, like I said, I think we're getting dangerously close to that. I do think games have to matter. I do think results have to matter. And I know it's like the most cliche talking point ever, but it's also true, is that we're just going to go based on who we think would be best. Then let's just let Vegas decide the champion in August and not even play the game. I mean, it's why we play the game. Vanderbilt was a 20-something point underdog against Alabama. Michigan was a 21-plus point underdog against Ohio State. And so yeah, soapbox officially over.
Well, how do you think it's going to play out, though, AT? Like when it's all said and done, are we going to get a resolution here soon? Are we going to figure out if the SEC is going to have 9 games and a Big Ten game? Or are we going to be able to figure all this out here over the next month?
David, I don't know all of your background, but if you've worked in corporate stuff, it's a lot of meetings to have another meeting, to have another meeting, to have another meeting. And that's where I'm afraid that we're headed to. And I don't know that we get a resolution because, again, everyone has their own best interest at heart. And okay. All right, David, I got to run, buddy. I'm really sorry about this, okay? Take care. Bye.
Do your thing. Sounded like there was a fight. Oh, wow. That was kind of an abrupt ending to the... Luke, what do you think happened? The little bow wow bite somebody's ankle?
Just probably walking his dog.
Oh, okay. Huh. That was interesting. Interesting way to end. Love you, AT. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with an open segment. If your car was hit by the recent hailstorm, please don't trust an out-of-town pop-up tent with your car. Trust someone who's locally owned and operated, and they've been in this market for a long, long time. I'm talking about Classic Collision and Restoration. They specialize in paintless dent repair for hail damage repair. And we all know that those out-of-town pop-up tents are probably already gone. Most of them are, but they're not local. You can't trust them because when something happens to your vehicle, you're like, hey, this didn't work out the way it was supposed to. They're gone. You're never going to see them again. Let somebody who can handle your insurance claim and be here for the test of time. That's what they do. They've been here for 25 years. Countless customers have trusted Classic Collision Restoration to bring back their car to showroom form. They have a top-quality auto body repair, and they are here to make sure that you get that quality service and detail that you expect. And as you know, the saying goes, you get what you pay for, right? And that's the fact. So don't just get your car fixed, get it restored with Classic Collision Restoration. Aggie owned and operated by Doug Leopold, class of 93. Classic Collision and Restoration. Call them up, 979-779-8399 or online at classiccollisionandrestoration.com. Let's talk a little Snaps clothing. David Nuño here, and I love wearing Snaps clothing everywhere. I've got the flannel on right now. You've seen me in the Tailgater collection with the A&M gear. It is fantastic. If you see me around town with my sons, Christian and Cruz, they've got a bunch of Snaps gear. When they have big games for Consol, they wear nice clothes, so they wear their Snap stuff. And I'm telling you, with baseball season here, let's all kind of go looking stylish and fit to the games there at Olsen wearing the Snaps clothing. As a reminder, they are the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snaps maker out there. Their Tailgater collection is built for game day with breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics to keep you comfortable while you rep your Aggies in style. Now, whether you're watching the game from home or maybe you're in attendance, you're tailgating, whatever it may be, you got to make sure you head to snapsclothing.com to see everything they have to offer. It is fashionable, it is awesome, and you're going to love it. Hey, everybody. I'm on camera. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. And let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Reese Nygren, we've got a little bit of nothing to do with A&M. A little college baseball potential movement in the coaching ranks.
Yeah, breaking news from Kendall Rogers. A deal not done yet, but it looks as if Virginia head coach Brian O'Connor is headed to Mississippi State. O'Connor led Virginia to the 2015 national championship and had 7 College World Series appearances in his time at Virginia. Virginia was highly ranked in the preseason, but ultimately missed the tournament with a 32-18 record and going 16-11 in the ACC. So a new coach in Mississippi State, as Virginia now has a baseball opening.
By the way, Luch did post a little bit about this on our premium board, just responding to the reports that it could happen. That this was he was hearing that Fitzgerald from Kansas until yesterday, so things started changing to O'Connor. Communication potentially on A&M side, but that wasn't necessarily the target if there was any movement. So again, we don't know if there's going to be movement on the A&M side. I know that after hearing Trev's comments the other day, you could feel like it's trending in that direction, and it certainly might, but they still have to meet. I know that Coach Early and Trev plan to meet here in the next probably 24 hours or so. What else do you have for us, Reese?
Texas A&M women's tennis star Mary Stoyana earned recognition as one of 3 finalists for the Honda Award for Women's Tennis, announced on Tuesday. Stoyana is a finalist for the 3rd consecutive year, winning the award in 2024. During the 24-25 season, Stoyana stood out among the nation's best, including spending multiple weeks at number 1 on the ITA national ranks. She registered a 28-6 overall mark, including 20-4 in dual action and 10-1 in SEC play. Stoyana ended the season ranked number 2 and posted a 23-6 record against other ranked players.
Awesome stuff. Appreciate you very much. All right, so here's the agenda for the remainder of the program. By the way, I'm not going to be hosting tomorrow. Ryan Broniger will be in here, so Bronny and OB together. I know people really love how off the rails the show gets when that happens. So that'll be the go hour. Bronny will handle that. If there's breaking news, I'm sure I'll be calling in, but I'm going out of town for a couple days. So here's the agenda for the rest of the show. Billy Liucci. We'll call him up here in a few minutes. And then the fan show guys. And what we're tackling is, you know, the way Trev handled, at least with Billy, what Trev handled, how he handled the whole baseball conversation, the future of the program from Destin. And I think it mirrors exactly what Billy said on the show on Tuesday. So we'll talk about that. And also the Ross Dellinger report that Billy has basically been talking about on this show for weeks, if not months, that A&M is going to give scholarships across the board. And not a lot of other programs are doing that. A&M is one of the few that will be doing that. Others are going to ramp up to that. So we'll chit-chat with Billy about that. And maybe I'll even ask him the non-starter that he's buying stock in that, you know, we kind of touched on some guys that didn't get a lot of opportunities, what they could look like next year. Maybe we'll touch on that in your text messages and your questions at 979-693-1150. All right, it's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Hey everyone, David Nuño and Olin Buchanan and OB. Typically we start off the show in this section and we call it the Holistic Planning Cool
The cool zone, yeah. It's pretty cool.
What do we know about holistic planning?
Well, a lot of cool stuff. For instance, holistic planning can help you with your investments.
I love that.
They can help you with your taxes. So
I don't like paying taxes.
You can get that money that from your investments and they keep it, they'll help you keep it away from the government.
Yep.
Not all of it, but more of it. And then they'll even help you with your estate planning. When you're old like me, you got to make sure some of that money you made is there for when you want to retire and just enjoy the rest of your life.
You want your estate to be planned, but they also do something else.
Yeah, well, if you are like, say, a sports fan and you've always wanted to...
Everybody watching us, right?
Yeah. And you want to always dream of being an owner, well, in a certain way you can, because they will broker the deal for you to invest in pro sports.
Yeah, what you need to do is check out investinprosports.com. That's where you can get all the information if you want to invest in a team. I don't know what team. He'd probably try to buy the Cowboys. I try to buy a lot of the Houston teams. Whatever it may be, investinprosports.com. It is holistic planning, and we love hanging out at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. And we're back at TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3 of the show. Our friends at Bryan Broadcasting should be calling up Billy Liucci here momentarily because I think he is on the road. So we'll chit-chat with Billy about all the things happening in college football with the SEC spring meetings. And, maybe if there's anything new to the baseball situation. I don't think there is anything new because Trev's got to come back and still meet with Michael Early. So we'll chit-chat with Billy about all those things. And then if you have any questions, we'll get to those as well at 979-693-1150. I believe Billy is on the Bucky's Catering Hotline. Let's go straight to it. Billy, good morning. Good morning, Billy.
That's what I said. Good morning, David. What's happening?
You weren't on the air. Sorry.
Well, that sounds like a you problem because here I am.
Well, here you are. What are you doing this morning, Billy?
No, I would tell you, but it's not the world's business.
Okay, let's not talk about it then. Let's
the whole world. I'm actually running out of town and back. Just got done posting some stuff, a few replies on TexAgs, and got in the car and I'm running home and I'm running out of town and back. A little day trip to go pick up my suit / tux. I don't know what I'm wearing to weekend weddings. 2 of them, actually.
Look at that. Party time for Billy. Hey, I wanted to, A, give you props, and B, kind of just go into the baseball thing. I know there's nothing new at the moment to add, but you on Tuesday were on the show, and you told us what you thought Trev was thinking and what he would do. And then literally the next day, he speaks to Olin and the rest of the reporters there, and his thoughts seem to be very similar to what you said. You thought he was going to wait till the SEC meetings were over, evaluate the situation, and let Mike tell him what the issues were, and from there kind of take course.
Well, so I guess one of 3 things happened. Either Trev sought my advice on how to handle this, or he listened and decided, wow, that guy really knows what he's talking about. I'm going to do that. Or it's just what he was going to do. And it just made kind of common logical sense to me. And I think we all know which one happened there. I think it just made common logical sense. And I just know what Trev thinks of Mike Early. And I also know the complicated nature of this one. So I hope they are going to meet. He's going to do what he said there. That meeting could be one of 2 things. It could be, Coach, we're going to let you go and move on, or Coach, we're going to keep you, or and this is what I think it's more of, is let's talk about this season, and there's a decision to make for the course for the future, and let's talk about what happened this season, what went right, what went wrong, why did it go wrong, what are your fixes for that, I think that's all information you have to take in if you're going to make a truly informed decision here. David, I think you have to take everything into account. What does this look like moving forward? What looks different and why? I just think I know a lot of people just think it's a throwaway, no-brainer, move on. Lost to Missouri, didn't make the tournament, greatest team ever, move on. And then there's a lot of people that say, no, you can't fire a coach after 1 year when you knew that you were hiring a coach that had never been a head coach before. That's too soon. And then there's the in-between people that want to, what I tend to want to do is talk through it and see. So I think it gets difficult when you factor in all the injuries, and then you factor in, I said this all year, I would have hit a reset with Tennessee. I would have hit a reset and said, look, that was a tough transition. By the time Grahovic got hurt a weekend, you had 2 of your 9 guys in the lineup that were starters last year. 2 have not. It took a while to figure it out. I would ask, why did it take so long? Explain that to me. Be like, I'm not. Explain that to me like I'm 5. But I would have started fresh with that Tennessee series because, like I said the other day, they were 8-9 in 2 months against teams ranked 1 or 2 in either the polls or the RPI. Georgia was 1 in the RPI when they played them. Auburn was 1. All those other schools I'm counting were 1 or 2 in the actual polls when we played them. That's 8-9 against teams ranked 1 or 2. I don't know which number is more wild, the fact that they went 500 or the fact that, it was 17 games played, and that's the schedule they played. So that turnaround has been really impressive. I think in 7 of 8 weekends there, they played top 5, top 10 type baseball. And then there was the one. And that thing it's like flashing neon lights. It's like a neon sign in the dark. You just can't take your eyes off of it, is that Missouri series. So that really complicates things. And I think we'd all be fooling ourselves if we thought that if that didn't happen, that these conversations would even be going on and that this would be a possibility. So it's just, I don't think it's as easy as some people think either on either side of it, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to see him give another run at it, but that's just my opinion. I'm not going to, I want to see where it goes from here. Like, I said, if you're going to make that move, you better have a floor, man. I wrote that today. I said it the other day. Better have a floor that you're convinced is a move that's not going to be there for you a year from now and that can immediately get this thing on track where you really want it, which is a high-end SEC annual Omaha contender. So if you make that move, you have to be convinced in 1 year that this isn't it, and you have to be damn sure that you get somebody that you're 100% convinced will get you back there and quickly. So to me, who is that? That's the tough thing, and that's where a lot of this is coming from, David, is there's no doubt that since Mizzou, Trev and A&M are kicking tires and they're asking questions and they're putting feelers out, and that's spread like wildfire through the baseball community. There's no secret, and a lot of people have just assumed that means done deal. I don't think it's done deal. I think a decision could be made in the next day or two, a couple of days. But everyone's seeing the signs, and I think the sport's kind of just sitting there waiting to see if something happens. I hope they don't do that for very much longer. I don't think that's fair to early in the players. And I don't think it's gone on too long. And if you keep them too, it's not fair. But I don't think it's gone on too long yet. I think if it goes on past this weekend, then I don't want to see them, if they do make a change, play the Del Conte David Pierce game. I said that yesterday. Like, as of now, you got done on Friday of Memorial Day weekend, a couple days to cool off, and then Trev's been in Destin from then until today. So I think that's perfectly reasonable, and I think you resolve that. In my opinion, I'd like to see it resolved this weekend. I know that the cutthroat, sneaky way about going about it would be to convince him that everything's good and then go and make a change and a day later have a coach. I get that. It's business. But in this case, either you're keeping him and you let the guy go and get crap rolling because there's portal, there's players you're keeping, there's a lot of stuff like that. There's staff personnel decisions that have to be made. There's all those things that you got to get going on. And then if you're not keeping them, then I think forget scheming and positioning and all that. Just make a change and do a coaching search and get a guy hired as quickly as possible.
Billy, I think you, and this is obvious, but I'll just say it, you can't make a move just to make a move, right? So if you're going to make a move, it would probably have to be a seasoned guy, right? Like you're not going to just get the next up and comer. Like I feel like You had that up-and-comer, and you have him, I should say. So if you're going to do something, it's going to have to be a seasoned version, or you continue giving this guy another run.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking to Billy.
That's it. I agree with you. You don't. There's got to be a real plan, and it's got to be a plan that you execute if you make a move. Or the plan is, hey, we like what we saw down the stretch. I need an explanation on Missouri. We need to talk about that, and I need to see what you're going to fix and how you're going to fix it. All those things, and okay, we're going to ride this out and see. My expectation is that you do a much better job in year 2. Tournament minimum expectation. Really need to see more, and you go from there. But again, unfortunately, that Missouri series made this a really, split decision. It really threw things up in the air. It did. I mean, it's just the reality. We knew it when it happened. I know everybody, once that happened, went the other way, but it was hard for people to realize, like, they played great baseball for weeks before and even the 2 weeks after, where they were 3-3 against Georgia, Mississippi State, Auburn, and LSU. I mean, not to mention all the one-run losses. I think, 2 to LSU, 3 to Texas. Like, they're 8 and 9 in those games with 5 or 6 one-run losses. So it is like, if you really start breaking it down, you're going, man, it's almost like, I think where the fans are too, you go off gut feel. I think you go off gut feel and you just say, because that's how much, I think if you wanted to be one way with it, you wanted to be the other, somebody on the other side could argue with you, and you just end up saying, well, hey, this is just what I think. I watch it. I don't think it works. Or someone says, I watch it. I think this team turned it around. They had one horrific weekend down the stretch, and you don't fire off one weekend. And others will watch it and go, man, I'm studying this, and this, and I don't think there's a fix there. So really not the it sucks that what they had to do is beat Missouri, even 2 out of 3. Even if Mizzou's conference record was 1-29, with that one being A&M, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. This team would be in the postseason getting ready for a regional.
Billy, one last thing about that whole scenario. Whatever you do, I want to phrase this correctly. You do what you think is right, not necessarily what the players think is right.
Yeah, no, I don't. I said this yesterday too. Yeah, I don't think you worry about. You can't be. Everybody will say, "Well, you learned that lesson last year." Yeah, and I don't think it was a lesson. Doing what they did last year, and people can ridicule it now. I think it was the right thing. Remember, they shot for the moon. It's not like they didn't pursue other coaches, and they just said, but they just thought Early was the better fit for right then and there. The only real shot to keep that thing going, like Tony Vitello would have kept it going. Tony would have kept that going. They took a shot at that and fell short. I mean, it was a really long shot. But those other hires they thought about, Tom Walter, Skip Johnson, O'Connor was kind of back and forth. If he would have jumped in at the beginning, it probably would have been him. Who now it's getting out. It'd probably take Mississippi State today. But those other guys, they're good coaches, and over the long term, probably do a really good job here. But that was going to not. You were going to have a lot of guys in Maroon White that were in different uniforms next year, and I don't think the fan base. I know myself. I was one of them. I don't think people were ready to see that, and so I think the hire, and it was the ability to make a quick move if you needed to, if it didn't work out. But it is a little surprise. I would not have thought we'd be having this conversation a year from then.
Billy, let's hit a break here. We'll come back and talk a little football on the other side. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Okay. All right. We're talking Stuck in Comcast right now. I was thinking about something else. Aggieland, big news. Comcast is bringing Xfinity and Comcast Business to the Bryan College Station area for the first time ever. That means blazing fast fiber internet, unbeatable reliability, and multi-gigabyte speeds, perfect for students, sports fans, and businesses alike. No more struggling with slow connections. The new fiber network is built for speed, security, and seamless performance. And it's not just about the speed, it's about connecting our community with more than 1,000 miles of new fiber lines, a high-tech hub, and an upcoming Xfinity retail store. Even better, this expansion is part of a massive investment in Texas infrastructure, bringing economic opportunities and digital advancements to our neighborhoods. Whether you're working remotely, running a business, or streaming your favorite shows, Comcast is setting Aggieland up for success. The future of connectivity is in Aggieland. Visit ComcastTexas.com/BCS to learn more. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy Liucci's on the Bucky's Catering Hotline. Billy, I want to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center because a little bit of somewhat of breaking news. Reese Nygren's got a little bit about the College Football Hall of Fame.
According to On3, the College Football Hall of Fame is lowering the win percentage requirement from 60% to 59.5%, which will make Mike Leach eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. That sparked a whole lot of controversy on the internet about it being 60% and Mike Leach being left off. So with the change, Mike Leach will now be eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame.
Billy, I haven't looked at who's all in there, but I know he didn't win a national championship. But to me, Mike Leach revolutionized college football and should be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, no question about it. Look, we go in every sport a million times, and there's a million different stories, right, as to what puts people into the Hall of Fame. Some it's statistics. Some it's winning, some it's revolutionizing the sport, some it's one or two or all of the above. But Mike Leach is a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, everybody knows that. They did the right thing.
Billy, I just did want to touch on something that I did not know until I got on the boards today, but Alan Cannon apparently is retiring, and I know that you wanted to say a little bit about AC, who's been so fantastic to everybody at TexAgs, all the media in the market, somebody who's done amazing work here for since the 80s.
Yeah, I've always AC one of the best in the business. And you ask around the sport, and people will tell you, and it's not just A&M people that say that. It's all the way around. It's across the country. Like I said, it's everyone in the sport. But over the years, it's always funny to hear people come through here and their take on AC and SID, and people come and go, and there's a lot of times there's disgruntled media that come and go. But my thing is this: AC was great to everyone, and it was always funny to me that people took umbrage. He's one of those guys in today's day and age, and if he had an issue with you, he would let you know. And if you didn't want to if it wasn't a big deal, it wasn't a big deal. If you wanted to, get offended by it, you could. I think our first, I always joke with him, our first interaction was not great. I was a young kid out of, probably still in college, just finishing here at A&M. It might have been the summer I was still getting my degree. I graduated in August or May, whichever it was. But I was trying to do interviews with my roommate. Said, well, can I do these? We don't know who you are. I tried to explain, which probably was wild to them. I always joke with RC because even back then he thought I was a runner for an agent. Well, we don't know you, so I don't know what we can do. Well, here's what I did. And I just said, okay, young and, me being me, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do the interview. And so I interviewed those guys in my living room. His name was Dan Shea and Dante Hall at the time. And after that, we sat down for a good little conversation and have had a great relationship ever since. He gets it. He's a great guy, worked with a lot of great coaches. There's a reason that he hung around as long as he did. And there's so many changes. Some people tried to create this narrative that was an A&M thing. No, it's an Alan Cannon thing. Every one of those new coaches could have snapped their fingers and said, I want to change at SID. Any one of them. Jimbo Fisher, Dennis Franchione, Kevin Sumlin, Mike Sharp, Elko, any one of them could have done that. There's a reason they didn't. And it has to do with the type guy and the type SID Alan Cannon was.
All right, Billy, here's a football question for you. And we talked about a little bit at the top of the segment or top of the hour with Stephen McGee. Which non-starter from last year would you buy stock in this year to have a real big year? And, several options out there, but just a couple of names that you're considering from non-starter last year to have a significant impact this year?
Non-starter. That's a good question.
Can we throw you some names?
I mean, are we talking about transfers or talking about guys that was on the team last year?
I have guys on the team last year that played, but maybe weren't like your 1A, 1B players.
DJ Hicks is way up there.
Yep.
Miles Davis, safety, is way up there for me. Ashton Bethel Roman's going to make an impact this year. You could almost put Ruben Owens in there, but that's kind of cheating. Those are some of the first ones that jump out at me.
A couple other names I'll just throw out at you: Terry Bussey, Rylan Kennedy. Just a couple names.
Yeah, no, those are great ones. And unfortunately, both were hurt most of the spring, so we didn't get to really see what they can do because I think they're both poised for a big season. But yeah, I wasn't even thinking about them because they played. But like you said, technically non-starters, particularly Kennedy. But yeah, I think those would round out my group: Bussey, Rylan, Hicks, Miles Davis. Those are kind of the first names that would jump out at me for sure.
Do you think we're going to finally get the 9-game season or the 8-game regular season, or is it just going to be more talking about it?
I think we're moving towards it, but I think Sankey. I heard what Josh Pate was saying yesterday. I'm sure we'll discuss it with him this week. But I agree. Like, you can't. They've got to start being able to figure out how to put this thing together like they do the basketball and baseball tournament, where you're seeding teams and you're seeding them based on, and they're getting in the postseason. You're seeding them based on the toughness of conference. Period. Like that's just how it has to be, and there can't be outrage if you're going to do this. If the SEC is going to 9 games, there can't be a bunch of crying and outrage if one year they get 6 teams out of the 16 in the tournament. If it's the toughest league by far, and you start playing these Big Ten games and kind of giving yourself a chance to prove it, then that's that. Like, there's got to be something in there to say, hey, it just is what it is, you know? Like, if we're going to do this, then we need to see these teams like March Madness does and like the baseball tournament does, where 13, 14 teams out of 16 get in and no one complains because they just know.
Billy, I want to leave you with this one last comment. I just saw David Rumsey's reporting that Charlie Baker says March Madness expansion could come as early as 2026. We're talking about maybe 72 or 76 teams.
I'm done caring about it, David. Like, look, that's fine. I mean, but let's stop patting everyone on the back once. You know, at some point, that tournament's going to be like not a participation trophy, but at some point that tournament's going to come down to, man, you better be in the tournament or you're going to get fired. I mean, it's starting to grow to those levels. But it's fine because the best team is still going to win. You know, the way it's structured it's not. It's just cheapens getting in. That's all. And who cares?
Billy, have a great weekend.
All right, David. You know, you could keep me on. Now that you've done it, now I'm about to be on the road. I can talk.
Huh. It's interesting. We had a schedule, and I was just following the schedule.
Who's coming on next?
The Fan Show guys. You want to host it? I can leave. I can go do some other stuff.
No. Have fun. Tell them all hi.
No, I want you to do it. I think it would be good. You and the Fan Show guys.
No. Hey, look, I like the Fan Show guys, first of all. So it's not that. But at some point, someone's got to lead the circus. And as you know, I lead the circus every day in more ways than we can count. So most notably in that office dealing with all my little bearded buddies down there. Zane, Evangelist with his mustache, Brawny, who makes fun of Zane's beard every day. I always joke, like, I can't make fun of facial hair, but as a company, and maybe that's the tone I'm setting, and this is what you call leadership, but not in the right way, I've set the tone around here for some really bad facial hair decisions.
Just wait till I grow mine.
I was going to say, you're one of the only ones that hasn't fallen prey to that. Gabe did for a while, most of his career. Olin, I think Olin's even had like some weird, like 80s police detective type facial hair. You know, like the guy that walks in here like, Buchanan, get in here, tell us what you know about the Nuño v. Evangelist case. Well, boss, you know, like, he's had that for a while. I'd like to see him bring it back personally.
I told you I'm doing the Liver King this summer.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see. Later. I might do it. I might just do it. That was my way of ending the segment, by the way. Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online at CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. If you're a business owner and you're ready to take your operation to the next level, let Caldwell Country Chevrolet take care of you, because they've expanded their selection of commercial vehicles to meet your every need. They do have service body trucks. They have heavy-duty flatbeds. They have medium-duty trucks, and they can handle those tough jobs. They've got the muscle for your business demands, and they are now a newly designated Business Elite dealer, which means they understand what it takes to keep your company moving forward with the right vehicles at the right pricing at the right time. And not every commercial vehicle purchase, every vehicle purchase comes with that legendary free oil change for life, because they believe in supporting local business, just like they support Aggie athletics. It's about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan, to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and you do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Little volume all over the place. TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. As a reminder, the final segment of the program is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been around Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. The Fen Show guys are here.
Hello.
Roy and Matt Browning. Hello, friends.
Hey,
Roy
buddy.
May and Matt Browning, I should say.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
So Billy was like, maybe we can do another segment. I was like, what about the Fan Show guys? He's like, all right, I'll see you guys later. I was like, you can host it and I can leave. He's like, no, I'll let you do it. I gotta go. I'm busy. And then he did say, I like those guys.
Hey, I know. Billy's always liked the Fan Show. I dig it.
I mean, at least he tells you that. Yeah.
He does. He's always been like, I actually like the Fan Show.
The thought of Billy hosting the Fan Show is an intriguing one.
That would be pretty.
That would be
How would that go?
interesting. I have no idea. Probably just yell at us.
Yeah.
No.
Or we just sit around and make fun of Bronny for 20 or 30 minutes.
I could see that happening. I'm going to allow the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center, Reese Nygren, to ask the first question. I think he knows what to ask, right?
Great shirt, by the way.
Quality.
What's on your mind?
You asking me?
No. What is on y'all's mind?
I'm going to give the floor to Roy to start the day. He's got a fire about him this morning, and I dig it.
Fire in the belly.
Look, I was shot out of a cannon this morning. It's kind of one of those days. Beautiful day. Rain's finally passed. What's on my mind, if we're being completely honest, I'm going to nationals this weekend, bowling nationals, so that's like foremost in my mind. Yeah, heading out to, bowling's in Baton Rouge, but we're going to stay in New Orleans because staying in Baton Rouge just seems like a really stupid idea. So I'll commute back and forth to bowl.
They've got some good casinos there.
Yeah, well, we're going to hit Lake Charles on the way back. But what's on my mind is probably what's on everybody's mind is it's Bucky ball, baby.
Bucky ball.
It's been really fascinating to see him build this roster from literally one. And on the flip side, kudos to Joni Taylor. She's filling her roster as well. I've been keeping tracks on that. It's just kind of, it's all this portal and movement season. Kay Nagley, has the softball tracker, the portal tracker for our team. Good to see we only have 2 out so far. So obviously, despite how the season ended abruptly, there's a ton of returning talent on that team. So it's just right now it's watching all the moving pieces, and it's I've kind of signed out on watching college baseball or college softball. So I'm really watching player movement at this point.
So let me kind of go through. So do you remember the conversation was when Bucky took over? I think even Billy said this on the show yesterday, was you're going to get a lot of players probably that played for him at Sanford, right? That was going to be your roster. I'm going to read you where these guys came from just the year prior,
it's
right?
It's fascinating.
Jakari Lane, North Alabama. Zach Clements, Kansas. Mackenzie Mbako, Indiana. Josh Holloway, Sanford. Marcus Hill, NC State. Jamie Vincent, Texas. Federico, Texas Tech. Rylan Griffin, Kansas. Remember, he played on the Final Four Alabama team. Rashawn Agee, USC. Pop Isaacs, Creighton. These are all guys from big programs.
Those are basketball schools.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some talent coming in, and I'd tell you this from a basketball standpoint, it's going to be this will be really interesting to go from what we had the last few years to what we're going to have next year.
Completely different style of basketball. Completely different.
We're going to have an entirely new team. It's just kind of rare. You don't have, we don't have. There's no Solo. There's none of these guys coming back that a lot of the guys we would love to have had, but you're starting literally from scratch. And not only are you starting from scratch with a whole new roster, but you're also starting from scratch with an entirely, completely different style of play, which is going to be so from a fan standpoint, it's going to be a fun little season. Regardless of how successful they are, all that, we're going to see a very, very different basketball team.
Well, we talk about it in football a lot, too. Like, recruiting these days is not just recruiting on a high school or the portal. It's recruiting your own roster, right? And Mbako going and having the kind of performance he had at that elite NBA camp, what it was called, I was a little concerned about it.
Yeah, I was too.
I was like,
even though I was told not to be concerned, I was concerned.
He totally balled out. I was like, crap.
Yeah.
But to get him to come back, and I'm sure a lot of that, he said it, it was his decision. He wants to be a locked-in first-round draft pick. But at some point, there were conversations to be had between Bucky and Mbako to say, hey, I'll get you to that first round.
I'll get you there.
Yeah.
You're going to score whatever amount of points a game here. You're going to be on display. Mr. Browning, what is on your mind?
Well, all right. So
I think I know where you're going.
Obviously, what's on my mind is what everyone's talking about is baseball and the future of our baseball program and what's going to happen there. And I've heard opinions across the board. It's the craziest thing.
Everything.
Yeah. Everybody, especially here in town, everybody you talk to, everyone has a different opinion, right? And it's kind of funny. I mean, and what's funny is they all make really good cases as to stay the course or to go a different direction, things of that nature. It's really, really crazy to hear the different opinions and all that, and it's just a wild time. And I mean, it's not as if we're not used to a coaching search around here. I mean, this has been a common occurrence for us for the last few years, regardless of the sport. Yep. And so it's it's fascinating to me, where it's 50-50. It seems like to me from the opinions that I've gotten. Like I said, stay the course or go a different direction. And the different direction, no one has any idea who that direction would be. But it's just fascinating, because at other times we've always been like, okay, it's time, or no, it's not time. But this one, it is very, very split. It's kind of it's an interesting dynamic that you see.
I don't know if split's the right word if we're talking completely baseball. Mm-hmm. I think split when you get to, like, from my position, I get to know these guys, right? So I'm sorry, there is a personal relationship that does take into account. And people don't like to hear that, but that's the fact. I like Michael Early. Yeah. I think I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him get another chance. I also would understand, you know what? If you can upgrade in today's college sports, you better upgrade quickly, right? So if you can, I don't want them to make a move for the move. Yeah. I want them to make a move where they swing for the fences and they do hit that home run. Yeah.
Well, but I think it also just speaks to objectivity that you're able to hold. Like, I mean, you really like the guy. He's a nice guy, and he's personable, and he's and that's okay.
And they played really good ball
in spurts.
I would say the second half of the season they played good ball, except one weekend. Because to the weekend they lost to Texas, even though to me that's the worst. To me that's almost worse than Missouri. I know they were number one.
It's worse as a fan, but it's not worse as objectively.
But outside of the Missouri game, as Billy has said many times on this show, they played top 10 baseball.
They did. And so we saw.
But the Missouri series happened.
Then they played bottom 30.
Yeah.
300.
You saw the potential. Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. We saw the potential. You saw a young coach with. So the two sides are, hey, you've got a young coach who experienced some growing pains this year, who had some major injuries, had some things that he had to deal with. Now, every coach has injuries, so there's no excuse, but I'm just saying. So you've got that that side of it going, hey, there were times where we played amazing baseball, and then there were times where we just, But
there were a lot of mistakes on the field. You're like, how do you make those mistakes?
Correct.
So all that is I think, fair part of the conversation.
It's all part of the resume.
So the conversation being, and again, I'm not telling you which way I'm leaning in any way, but basically, that's the conversation being held. He had some great moments. You see the potential there. You see that there. Other coaches have had bad initial seasons as well, and then you got the other side of it. We're going, hey, you had the number one team in the country. Starting the season, you have tons of talent.
But Roy would say to that, were they really the number one team in the country?
I agree. Well, Billy brought it up, though. At one point, he had two dudes out of 9 from last year's team that were on a starting roster. Yeah. So it's...
No, agreed.
Again, there's so many counterpoints in this.
Yeah. I'm just laying out the things that, and then you go and you win the Tennessee series, you win the LSU series, you win the Arkansas series, you win all these series, and then you turn around and then you lose the Missouri series. And Texas is tough. Texas is again, like you said, from a national perspective, Texas losing to the number one team in the country
by a run
on the road
by a run
every game is not that bad. But as Aggies, after losing to them in football, and then losing 2 out of 3 in basketball, and then losing 3 straight in baseball to a team that doesn't even deserve to be here. God, I hate them so much.
What do you mean, like on planet Earth?
Yeah, they're awful. It's like,
Well, but again, so this is the counterpoint stuff. The people making decisions can't do it as Aggies. They have to do it as an athletic director, what's best for this program. And yes, what's best for Texas A&M program, but we can't be like, you got swept by Texas, you're gone.
No.
Like, it
I
can't
agree.
be like,
yes.
I understand if you lose to Texas 30 years in a row. Yeah, you probably don't take 30 years. Yeah. But they have to do this objectively for the health of the athletic department.
Yeah.
And for that specific
Not make
program.
emotional decisions based off of ego.
Let's hit a break. We'll come back. I want to ask some football stuff on the other side. Right now, Rollo Insurance. Insurance decisions shouldn't be made in 15 minutes or less. Rollo Insurance builds lasting relationships through education. They help you understand what you're buying and why you're buying it with expertise in everything from home to auto to business and specialty coverage. Their independent agents provide an option tailored to your specific needs. They take time to explain those policies to you because sometimes you're just signing. You say all these words and you just sign. No, with the Rollo Insurance Group, you're going to get a personal agent who's going to explain the entire process to you.
Explain
yeah,
it all.
they're fantastic. They're the best. Many clients discover better protection at competitive rates simply by calling them because they'll get to understand all their options. Visit RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs. Visit RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs or 888-44-ROLLO. BCS Game Day is about to get better. Comcast is bringing Xfinity and Comcast Business to Aggieland, delivering ultra-fast fiber internet to 70,000 homes and businesses. That means crystal clear, uninterrupted live sports streaming, whether you're watching from your couch, your favorite tailgate spot, or your phone on the go. No more buffering during the play, just multi-gigabyte speeds, seamless streaming, and unmatched reliability. Plus, Xfinity's powerful Wi-Fi ensures you never miss a moment, whether it's SEC showdowns, NFL Sundays, or March Madness. And with more than 1,000 miles of new fiber and upcoming Xfinity retail store, Comcast is connecting sports fans like never before. Get ready to stream faster, cheer louder, and enjoy victory with zero lag. Visit ComcastTexas.com/BCS for details on how you can start streaming like a champion. I'm asking you guys a dumb question.
Okay? It's got to be basketball, though, because Luke's in the fishbowl, right?
No, Luke's not even paying attention. Oh, he is. He's waving his arms. If he shot like that, it would be blocked all day. It would just be not blocked.
Break your nose with your own shot.
Here's my dumb question. So Elko was asked about the fade at the end of last season. He's talked about it a couple different times over the last week, and they recognize they have to be better at finishing stronger. I think the answer is obvious, but I'll ask you both. But why, Rollo and Shirts? No, I ask you, if you could have it where they won towards the end, you flipped it, right? So the start of the season would have been what we saw in November, all right? We're talking September, felt like November, but they won at the end, kind of like what Florida did, which everybody has their arrow pointing up, or the reverse, which what we saw. What would you take?
I would always take the end, obviously. Does it mean going into the next season you're excited? You're like, okay, look, we started this bad, but we really picked it up towards the end. We progressively got better, where we appeared to get worse as the year went on. And so, whether you're 8-4 from a good start and a bad ending, or a bad start and a good ending, you're 8-4 either way. But I think from again, it's all perception. So I would
like the leaning forward in the foxhole kind of thing. Honestly, I think you kind of hit it. It doesn't really matter one way or the other, but I mean, you like to see improvement as the season progresses because you feel like that momentum carries into the next season. But what's weird is kind of looking around and hearing some people talk, the arrow seems to be pointed kind of up for us anyways. Like, I kind of feel that, and I think that comes off of us having, Le'Veon Moss going down and kind of ending, just kind of fell apart, I guess, to an extent, you'd say. But people saying, yeah, but the talent's there, he's going to be back. So it feels like there's an upward arrow trajectory. Outside of this site, outside of TexAgs, it feels like people are a little up on us, which is, I would say, surprising.
But are we always up-ish right now?
Yes.
Like, I feel like,
well,
and I'm not even saying
no, it's not from a national perspective. Generally, we get dumped on, and when we're coming off a kind of a fading season, is what we'll call it. It's easy for people to be like, it's maybe 6-7 wins again, or 6-7 wins, not again. But I just feel like there's some positivity coming out that it's like catching me off guard.
Yeah.
Obviously Mike Elko, it's talking season. He's going to say, I like his answers though. They're not coach speak. I think he's generally as straightforward as he can be. Hearing the news about Marcel Reed, I think Cassius Howe is going to be a beast getting him back. So I think there's a lot of positives, but combine that with what he's saying. It's like, we have to be better. We have to finish better. And combine that with what he said at the end of the season last year. He was like, man, our defense is crap. And to have a coach straight up say that's kind of nice.
If the O-line stays the same and you get the kind of growth we saw from the line last year, which was the big question entering the season from the defensive backs, and you stay healthy, there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
If you do those three, this is a really good team next year.
Yeah, I have no doubt that the defense will be much improved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I think the coach is that good.
Appreciate you guys. All right.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for TexAgs Live here on a Thursday. Tomorrow on the program, Bronny, he's hosting. I'm out. I've got a little trip planned. Bronny will have the baseball bunch guys. Bronny will have OB, and I don't know what else we'll have. He'll have something good. It's TexAgs Live.